And hello, everybody, and welcome. Many of you online with us right now know me. I'm Kevin Hendricks, the Executive Director of the Fund for People in Parks. And welcome to this virtual visit at San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park. It may look like I'm at beautiful Aquatic Park Cove right now with my virtual background, but I'm not. I am actually in New Mexico. But we have a number of the park staff with us today to give us an inside look to what's going on at the park. We are really happy to be having this visit with the superintendent, the executive director of their local friends group, and some of the cultural resources staff. But first, thanks to our various supporters and donors on the line with us today. This is the fourth live virtual park visit that we've done in the last year or so, and I'm glad you could all join us. It has been tough getting out into parks with the pandemic, but I hope these virtual visits have helped a little bit, get you some neat park experiences. The projects that we've done at San Francisco Maritime and the projects we've done at a number of other parks, frankly, wouldn't have been possible without the support of our generous donors. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for the support from everybody out there. We've done some great work enhancing the visitor experience, and it wouldn't have been possible without all of you. In addition to the park staff with us today, we also have the Friends Group, the San Francisco Maritime National Park Association, and we'll hear from Executive Director Darlene Plumtree in a little bit as well. Thanks, Darlene, for joining us today. And you've been a great partner for the fund and for the park, and we've been happy to work with you. Now I want to introduce Superintendent Dave Brulette. And Dave, thanks for hosting us today, and tell us a little bit about the park, and then if you'll introduce our speakers today.
Well, thanks, Kevin. First of all, thank you for allowing us to come into your screen today. We're getting a lot of practice with virtual reality these days too, and as you can see, we're getting good at it, and you'll find out how good we're getting. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in today, not only for just being able to see what we're doing here at San Francisco Maritime, but all of the support that you give to parks. And Kevin knows that only too well because I am actually his predecessor. He was superintendent here. Many of you probably know he was superintendent before I got here. And we really rely on partnerships like this, like our association, Fund for People for the Parks, to really enhance what we do and serve the public. So it's been a challenging year, and we have really sort of taken to this new way of reaching out to people and presenting things. Our staff has done a fantastic job figuring out how to continue our mission at the park of preserving maritime history and educating the public and sharing that with everybody by way of just new ideas for getting out to people, like podcasts, and we're doing live tours on the pier, on the ship. We're doing virtual shanties, all of these projects in cooperation with our association that are really reaching people all over the world now. It's fascinating, and not only, I kind of think that this is something we're going to be sticking with. We'll go back to the way we used to do things, but we've found so many new ways to reach out to people that we never would have seen, if this hadn't happened. So it is the wave of the future. Kevin's far away from us. Darlene's up in San Francisco. I'm actually in LA, Los Angeles today. So it's amazing that we can do all this work and reach all these people, and we're all over the country. So it's fantastic. And I'm just so super proud of the work that our staff at San Francisco Maritime is doing. We actually have quite a few television stars, I think, that are going to come out of this into their next career when they're all over, and kind of just rolling with this. I think some of them are entertainers, and this has just given them an outlet. And you'll see how super excited they're going to be today. So this is just another great opportunity for us at the park to show you what San Francisco Maritime is all about. As I said, we preserve maritime history, we preserve the culture, we tell the stories, We show people through our archives, through our exhibits, through our sort of living history that we do. And I do hope that when this is all over, you'll come out and see us in person so we can do this face to face sometime. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Eloise Warren and Gina Barty, who are going to show you some wicked cool things in our collections. The man behind the camera is Taylor Horton. I don't think you'll be seeing him, but I want to thank our staff for doing this, putting this all together. I know you're going to love this. So thanks again for tuning in, and thank you again for your support.
My name is Gina Barty, and I'm the reference librarian at San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park.
I'm Eloise Warren. I'm a museum specialist in the preservation department.
And today we're going to show you our wicked kayak, our wicked cool kayak. Eloise, what is this?
Gina, this is an Alaskan kayak from the Yupik region of Alaska, central Yupik region, which is a very large region of coastal and maritime island area of Alaska. It is 15 foot approximately. It's about 27 inches wide at its widest point at the cockpit, and it's made of skin. We think it's a seal skin kayak, and wood and some other materials that we'll talk about later.
Well, let's take a closer look. What do you say?
First, I just want to tell you why it's here. Because it doesn't live here.
Yeah, you might be thinking, why do you have an artifact out on a table in the middle of a room? But there's a reason for that.
We're doing an upgrade in our storage facility here. And in that process, we had to move a lot of artifacts out of the building. And this one is quite delicate, despite its sturdy look. And it couldn't move. So we brought it down from permanent storage, and it was on this table, which gave us an opportunity to really look at it, to clean it, to document it, and to learn more about it. Because in our collection file, we had very small amount of information, and it wasn't inaccurate information. It just wasn't deep. So it has been in the collection from a very early time, before, when this museum was a private institution. This was one of the earlier collected objects.
So probably came to us in the 1950s or 60s?
Probably, something like that. And I think 60s actually. And it's related to the Alaska Packers Association.
Which some of you might know from our ship in the park, the Balclutha, which used to be the Star of Alaska, which worked with the Alaska Packers, which was a salmon canning industry, which was a huge industry here on the West Coast in Seattle as well. So it came to us from the Alaska Packers.
Right. So we had, I believe, yes, and we have a large archive of Alaska Packers material, not just the Balclutha, which we'll show you as well. But this was something that we believe was collected, sort of like a souvenir or a memorabilia from a ship captain who was working in this region, fishing in Alaska. And it was quite common for, I don't know, businesses or big guys to bring stuff back. Obviously, we know a little bit about that. And so that's where it was. It went to the Alaska Packers offices in San Francisco. We have some other stuff from their office as well. So we think that that's the kayak that we see in the images from their offices.
We actually think that, and again, we don't know for sure, but it might have been at the Panama Pacific Exposition of 1915, because we have the book of the story of the exposition, and it mentions specifically the Alaska Packers having native craft, including a kayak. So it makes sense that that kayak would then have gone to the president's office, and had been in the president's office, and then from the president's office, it ended up here, and now it's on this table. And you want to take a closer?
Yeah, I want to show you some things. There's when we didn't know a lot about it, it was very, we're learning a lot. We still don't know a lot about it. And sometimes the more you look at something, the more you see, and the more you realize you don't know. So
The
we're
more
sort of
questions.
learning about all the stuff we don't know.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's kind of an interesting, it's a different approach to that story of the Alaska Packers. It's coming from a totally different angle than the Valclusa. They're two fishing vessels, and they could not be more different. So,
Right, we have
Valclusa is a steel hull,
giant ship,
and this is sort of a more svelte,
organic.
organic object. And in fact, it's one of the largest, outside of our wooden objects, this is one of the largest sort of mixed media, complex objects that's made of some, like, lots of organic material, skin and wood, sinew.
Yeah. And blubber.
So,
Come on.
so what should we tell us?
Well, you know, one of my favorite things, just looking at the kayak, when you look at it, I like to pretend like I'm a sewer. I've never made anything that could fit my body, but the sewing, some of these stitches in here. Eloise, can you talk about why those stitches are the way they are?
Yes, I can talk about, in fact, Petey has a still shot of some of the various types of stitching. Imagine this kayak had to be waterproof, and this is mammal skin. It's probably a pinniped. It's lived his life in the water. It's, but they're stitching it together in such a way that it must be waterproof. So there's two types of stitches. There's a sort of blind stitch. It's called the weight. It's the sort of wavy stitch, and then there's a whip stitch, which
Is that kind of this stitch? Maybe
it's not that one. It's down here. Katie has an image of it at the stern where you can see both of them, and it's the whip stitch is along the top. So
okay.
just imagine the design of this. This has to be an incredibly well thought out. The craftsmanship is incredibly advanced. The technology is well practiced, and it's just kind of amazing to me to think of this object having to be in the open ocean,
Right.
and maintained and functioning as a hunting platform for people to hunt from, to carry their materials, to you know, it's an important object. It's an important tool for the livelihood of the village or the people who are using it.
It was more than just transportation, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's a kind of a personal that, you know, often I think people built them for their use. The person who would be building this would also be the person using it. So,
Right. Oh, right.
yeah. And it takes, and you know, the women were typically the sewers, the skin, they prepared the skin and they sewed it, and the men built the frame. And so, I mean, and that's quite complicated. We'll show you that a little bit
Do
later.
you know how do they get the skin on?
Yeah, so the thing about, I think, so I sort of back up a little bit and say that there are lots of different styles of kayak. And it depends on where you are and who you are, and up in the Arctic, and what you're going to do with it. But there's all different styles of sewing, of the pattern. It depends also on the animal that you're using and maybe how many you might use. They had large kayaks with 3 cockpits, 2 cockpits. So there's a lot of variation. And this particular Yupik, central Yupik kayak is what I've read, what I'm continuing to learn is that the bow, which is this end here, you would have prepared the skin and sewed it and then pulled it onto the kayak like a sock and then sewed it on. And then the rest of the stern part would sort of be wrapped around and sewn on, and it's joined with the front part. And the cockpit is important because it has to be, the skin has to be pulled over and secured.
Oh, yes, I see like these lashings.
Yeah,
kind of
lots of
lashing
lashings.
it down.
And so the lashings are in this kayak are generally cotton twine. There is some sinew and potentially some baleen in there as well. I can't quite get a good look at it. But it's an incredible, technology for fastening skins with other skin parts, with twine, and really creating a sophisticated object that performs, that has to perform
in the most dangerous
and
situations.
some really changing situations,
Right.
you know, lots of weather changes, lots of anyway.
Yeah.
And you're doing some serious business. I mean, the stuff we don't have is we don't have a lot of the equipment that would have gone with this kayak. We don't have harpoons, we don't have the paddles, we don't even have the deck lines. So the deck lines, we have evidence of the deck lines, but the deck lines would have crossed the deck on the stern and on the bow.
Taylor, if you want to get a shot.
There's one right here.
Oh, there you go.
And in several places, and you can see the forethought that went into creating this is sort of, you know where you're going to put the deck lines, and you reserve a hole in that portion. And so there's several areas where they would have had deck lines.
And Eloise, the deck lines, can you explain what those are?
Yeah, they're
So-
basically just like a rope to fasten, keep your stuff on your
Tied
boat.
up.
It's with easy access.
Oh,
So
like
you want to be able to grab it, and use it, and then secure it when you don't need it.
So they would carry things both inside and then on top?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
a
But
lot.
I'd like to show you can we take a walk down to so this is the stern of the boat. This is the rear and the cockpit and the bow. The bow is another like a symbol. It's typical of the central Yupik design, and it's also functions as a handhold. So it would have been a way to maneuver the kayak into and out of the water, or to
Right.
hold,
It seems so
pull them
natural. I'm not
together.
going to do it, of course, but it seems so natural just to like grab this.
Yeah. And again, you can see that the stitching is a whip stitch that's done from the outside. A lot of the stitching that you see, the wavy line, the blind stitch would have been done from the inside, and with the performance.
And again, these lines are just gorgeous. And this would have been built with no blueprints, nothing like that. This
Yeah.
was just,
This was common. This was knowledge passed down from person to person, and you know, I think there are people resurrecting that tradition now, but there are very few. You know, the kayak went out of use in different areas at different times, but remember that the Russians were in Alaska really exploiting the native population. So these guys went out in their kayaks and had to hunt otter, and so there was a lot of like use of the kayaks, but for outside people, for the benefit of a different,
not for the
not for
benefit
their
of
community.
society. Right.
and then slowly, and then America buys Alaska in 1867, and so then we started that process. So the what's next?
So we think we first thought it was walrus, right, when it came to us, but now we think it's seal.
Well, it's labeled as walrus,
Uh-huh.
but in some
This spotting just screams seal to me.
walrus was used in some cases, and imagine a walrus and his skin is really rough and tough.
Yeah.
So a lot of times walrus would have been added, or a piece of the kayak that would encounter the most use and wear, but that's not typical. I've been in touch with a lot of people and institutions in Alaska, and it's most likely that it's a bearded seal. And of course, it depends, the animal you use depends on where you are and what's around.
What's
So,
available.
sometimes there's, caribou hide in some kayaks,
Oh, wow.
beluga whale hide, and
Wow.
so there's a lot of different
And-
options.
Well, it's interesting you said that they use what they have, because when I picture Alaska and the pictures of the shore, there's not a lot of trees around. So what kind of wood were they using for?
Good question.
Yes.
So one of the really interesting things about this kayak, or learning about this kayak, is what we learned, that the wood is often driftwood that is collected. It's highly, a very sophisticated selection process. People know what they want. They also recycle the kayaks, so it's not going to live forever. So you can use parts from older kayaks. But the driftwood,
I'm sorry. So you might reskin your kayak
yeah.
every few years or
Yeah.
so.
I
Okay.
think, yes, I don't know technically.
And
Again,
under
I'm not a
carriage
kayak expert, still learning. So but the wood is beautiful, and it's so, I mean, this boat is so symmetrical. It's just, I mean,
It's so hard not to rub your hands on it because it's so,
but I want to show you the inside because the ribs of the boat, again, there's not a lot of, these guys don't have a workshop and like saws and pliers and, to
Steam trays.
So they're artists. They're carving the wood, and they are shaping the ribs of the boat. The ribs go across, the chines go lengthwise, and they're lashed together, and they're also joined with mortise joins, pegged. So there's lots of different combined ways that the frame is secured and strengthened.
wow.
And the skin is also tied to the deck line. You can see it more on the stern, because that's where they joined it. So
not a lot of hammering and nails
not
or
a lot
anything
of
like that.
This kayak does have some metal fasteners. I don't know. So I don't know how old this kayak is. We don't really know. We know it's not early. It's probably early 20th century or late 19th century, very late. And maybe it's been rebuilt a million times. I don't know. So
Yeah, there are some, I noticed some patches.
yes,
repairs.
there are some modern repairs, with fiberglass and resin. But the ribs are often shaped with a fine-tuned curvature is done with by biting. So there are teeth marks on almost all the major ribs in the hull of the ship. So can I take that camera?
Are you gonna get up?
Yeah.
Do you have a way to get up?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to hand it
Stay
to you once
tuned,
you're up there.
everybody. This is the stunt portion of the show here. So,
Okay.
There you go.
I can't.
and this fact, Eloise, I think is my favorite about this whole kayak, because you can look at it and you can say, yes, this was made by human hands. This is a human project.
Yeah.
But when you see what you're going to show, like, then you're like, yes,
Yeah.
this was made by, like, you just feel the connection.
Yes. It's like incredible closeness to the
Yeah.
hands that actually made this.
Yeah.
You're seeing.
Yeah.
So I'll show you the interior. And there's other special parts of the interior of this boat. So let me see. I don't know if you can see that, but those marks right there, those are the teeth marks. And they are in all the points at which there's an acute curvature in the rib. The other thing about this kayak and many kayaks is that at the stanchions there are carved symbols, and the symbols, I think Katie has some still shots of those, but you can see right here, there's also a tear right there, so it's not without damage. Yeah. The symbols in this boat, in the stanchions, are a smiling face. So that on each side there's an opposite symbol, and that is kind of indicating one of the most important parts of this kayak and using it is to have balance. So there's imagine being out in the water and learning to use your kayak, and you must be balanced. You must have the yin, the yang,
Right.
the male, the female, and that's
Positive,
I
negative.
think that's a symbol of luck,
Right. Do you think they actually use those symbols to keep the kayak steady, or do you think it was more of a spiritual or a
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know exactly, but I know that symbols can vary. Sometimes they're sun signs. Sometimes it's a woman. Oh, sorry. and it depending on who's making the kayak and where, it can be different. I'm just going to give you a little
inside,
an inside scoop.
Eloise, when you took this down, did you find anything inside? Like, what was the condition? How dirty was it? Was there things inside that needed to be cleaned out? Was there?
Yeah,
Gina,
that's a good question. It was really dusty, but only on the top. I'll give you a bird's eye view. That's 27 inches wide there at the cockpit.
Do we know how much it weighs?
No, but it's very light.
Eloise, watch out here.
I'm fine. I'm gonna pass this off and come down. So there.
So, because it looks light, like it can't
It's
weigh
very
that
light.
much.
One person can carry this
Okay,
easily.
okay, yeah.
And in fact, it's forgot what I was saying. Oh, it was dusty. So I did a dry brush, very delicate dry brush, and then I use a soot sponge to take off sort of a more stubborn layer of dirt. And I did a light vacuuming on the interior, very, very careful, because that was quite dusty. And this is pretty clean. This under here. So it's just the top surface is settling of dirt. There was a bird poop on it. I cleaned that off, of course. But it's very old bird poop. I don't know. So.
Hey, Gina and Eloise.
Yes.
Hey, before we run out of time, I know that you had a couple of photos you wanted to show us of some historical photos out of the archives. You were talking about what the kayak was made of, and you mentioned walrus, and I think one of those photos had walrus in the image, didn't it?
Yeah. So
Can we pull those? Can we pull those photos up right now?
Yeah. So not only does our park have amazing artifacts, but we also have a world-class research center, and which I encourage all of you when to maybe do another presentation on the archives. But so when Eloise started doing research on this, she came to the archives, and one of the things she looked at was like pictures we have in our collection. So this is a picture from a captain's scrapbook, Captain Thomas Foghorn Riley. And he was up in Alaska. So this is a picture he took. And if you notice, the front of that kayak has the same handhold.
It's slightly different.
Yeah, it's a little more up.
So that shows you the subtle variations in form. Also, look, check out he's kayaking through some sharp objects.
Yeah,
you know?
Some cold, sharp objects.
Yeah.
And Katie, do you have the other picture that shows the kayak on a boat on a boat? Right. So we have another kayak there. You can see like off to the right side. Same thing. It's got the little hole in the front. And if you notice to the left, those are all walruses and the most adorable dog in the forefront. I have to point that out. But so that's an example. This was the kayak they probably hunted those walrus.
And there are equipment on kayaks that they use bone and ivory as toggles, as they use that in the equipment and in the fashioning of the kayaks. Well, not this one, but it has, it is a thing.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I really want to ask, because I'm sure that this is a question other people are asking. What's next?
What's next? So we have a really incredible staff involved and very skilled in building boat cradles. So what's next is we are going to, it's going to stay here in collections. And it's going to have a custom built cradle that will support it and stabilize it. And we'll have it in its place where we can monitor it, because it is made of delicate, fragile material. Fragile meaning you don't want the environment to change. You don't want the humidity to change and cause any damage. So we want to be able to look at it periodically. We want visitors to be able to look at it.
Yes.
So that it will be covered from dust, but it will also be visible. So the cradle will be modular, and we'll be able to, if we need to look at it, if we decide to repair or do anything modifications to it, or if we have guests who want to come and analyze it.
Well, I know you are talking to people in Alaska right now, right? About
who may want to visit and draw it and take a closer look. So that's one of the ideas. We're going to have a cradle that allows for those kinds of things, but more importantly, that will, secure the kayak and give it a little house to keep it safe.
It's forever home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure everybody could tell, Eloise, you've done such great work on this, and I know that this kayak means a lot to you because you've spent so much time with it. You see there is a physical connection there that is just.
It's every time you look, you see something different, and there's so much to see and experience with it, and it doesn't get boring at all. Although, so just scratching the surface, there's a lot more that we can do. We can tell a different story, and this is a new avenue, a new porthole into the Alaska Packers.
Porthole.
a new avenue to look at that same story.
Yeah.
Through the native perspective. What did I
That's
miss?
great.
Did I miss anything?
I think
No,
that's
I
it.
think that's
Yeah.
it.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed as much as Eloise and I did.
That was
And if you have any
awesome.
questions, let us know.
That was awesome. That was really great. You mentioned just barely scratching the surface. This look at the kayak artifact, I know, is just barely scratching the surface of your artifacts. The park has an amazing collection. You can probably rattle off some numbers, I'm sure, Gina, can't you, about?
We are the largest collection in the National Park Service. We're the largest maritime collection on the West Coast. We have over 500,000 photographs, 70,000 book titles, not books, but titles of books. About 1 million sheets of plan, about over almost 2,000 archival collections. And I think the collection here is what, like almost 1 million, more than 1 million?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, more than 1 million here. So if you want to come back and visit, we will keep you busy. We have everything. We've got it all here. We do.
Thanks so much. Thanks, both of you. We will probably take you up on that. I know in other times we would bring small groups down. The superintendent would host small groups, and you guys would give great tours.
Oh, yeah.
We'll try to do that again someday. And we're glad you can do this with us virtually until we can get there. Thanks a lot.
Everyone.
You want to head down and mute you?
Well, thanks. We've the Fund for People in Parks has done a number of projects with San Francisco Maritime, and I just wanted to go over a few and just show you that we've been quite busy there. Whoops. We have we started with a project helping replace sails on the CA Thayer. That was our first project in 2017, and there's Katie on the deck of the Thayer. We also funded a film, The Last of the Lumber Schooners, a really cool film. It's available on our website. It's available on the park's website. We funded a really cool bronze compass rose in the decking of Hyde Street Pier to help orient visitors to the concept of navigation and direction. And we helped replace sails on the Grace Kwan replica Chinese junk, a project still underway. And we're helping refurbish the captain's quarters on the CA Thayer right now, another project still underway. And also the Balclutha Carpenter Shop, a project we're helping to rehabilitate and upgrade the exhibit in the carpenter shop of the Balclutha. And the Palace for the People, documentary short film just recently completed. And that's it. So we've had a full slate of projects at the park, and it's really been fun working with the park and the association. The San Francisco Maritime National Park Association has been a really vital partner with us helping the park. We've had some great collaboration with the association, what we shortened to the short title of association. And Darlene Plumtree, the executive director, is with us today. Darlene and I worked a lot together when I was there. But Darlene, welcome. I'm glad you could spend a couple of minutes with us and tell our viewers a little bit about what the association does.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Kevin. The San Francisco Maritime National Park Association is proud to be the park partner of the beautiful San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park. You can tell I'm really very passionate about it. It's a most unusual and unique urban park located on the historic waterfront of San Francisco. There are many wonderful facets to the Maritime Park, as you've heard. The historic ships at Hyde Street Pier, the iconic aquatic park bathhouse, the library and Maritime Research Center. I believe it's the largest collection, maritime collection west of the Mississippi. The association supports the park in realizing and supporting its mission through preservation, education, and philanthropy. In a normal year, and of course this last year has been anything but normal, the association usually runs the Maritime Park education programs, including the Age of Sail and the Gold Rush, experiential, immersive living history programs that give school children a maritime learning experience of what it was like to work and live on the San Francisco waterfront during the golden age of sail, when trade was dominated by sailing ships. These programs, which are normally held in the park at Hyde Street Pier, have served over 400,000 school children over the past 40 years. And I personally have had the experience of running into all kinds of people, including my doctor, who has memories of sleeping overnight on the Balclutha with the kids. So it really has affected a large part of the Bay Area. While these programs were interrupted, of course, by COVID last year, and we hope that we might be able to resume some of our program schedule by the fall of 2021. However, in response to the COVID crisis, since June of 2020, we have produced a multiple number of monthly virtual programs that we have developed in partnership with the National Park Service. We have sea shanty programs, tours of the park, the ships. They attract thousands of virtual viewers from all over the world. They've become a huge success and a great way for us to reach out to everyone. Our most recent program edition is called The MESS, and that stands for Maritime Education for Students of the Sea, with Maritime Research Center librarian Gina Barty, and those are held on the last Thursday of the month. If you check our website at maritime.org, you will find the latest schedule of sea shanties, San Francisco Maritime live tours, the MESS lunchtime series featuring watery topics from our Maritime Research Center. I hope that you all will have an opportunity to join us. And remember, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails. Thank you. Back to you,
Thanks,
Kevin.
Darlene. Thanks, Darlene. I'm glad you could join us. The association's education programs have really been world-class and had a big impact on many, many kids' experiences. And I hope you can get back to the education programs again someday soon.
I hope so too.
Dave, as we wrap up, I just want to pass it back to you for a second and see if you had anything else you wanted to say. Again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and your staff's time to do this with us today, but thanks so much.
My pleasure. This was a lot of fun, and you know, we spent a lot of time on one cool thing we did, and man, there are just so many fascinating things in that collection. I absolutely do invite you to come down with some of your folks and do it live and in person. We'll do it real. Just beware. I don't know how long you're gonna. It's like you check into that place, you might not be able to check out. They will keep your attention, as they said. So thanks again, and thanks Gina, and Eloise and Taylor. That was great.
Thanks everybody. We're going to do some question and answer right now. So as Katie mentioned at the top of the program, you all have a chat button at the bottom of your screen, and the staff will hang around for a few minutes to entertain your questions. So if you'll type your questions into the Q&A function, Katie will relay them to the team there at San Francisco Maritime. And Katie, anything else to add?
Nope. We have one question that came in while folks were talking, so I'll go ahead and have us address that one while other folks can type in their questions. Bernadette Powell asks, is there any form of waterproofing on the skin, or does the kayak depend on the skin alone being waterproof?
Yeah, that's the thing. Are we on?
Yes,
Okay.
they can hear you.
We don't know exactly, but the skin itself is from an animal that lives in the water. So it's got that advantage to it, the characteristics of the skin alone. But in terms of, I don't know that for sure if there were treatments. I do know that there was sometimes blubber applied, and then this kayak was sat in the sun to sort of as a conditioning of the kayak, and also to it sort of maintained the condition of the skin, but also made it a little smoother in the water. In terms of its later life in the lower 48, it may have been coated with something, a preservative or some kind of treatment, but we don't really know that. We could find out maybe. We did more testing, not really technical, and did some testing. But it's a good question. Don't have a great answer. Sorry.
Well, the blubber's interesting.
The blubber's well. Always so good.
Great, thanks y'all. We got a question from an anonymous attendee. Do you know of other museums with Yupik kayaks?
Yes. In fact, there are a number of high, maybe not specifically Central Yupik kayaks. I know that the Harvard PV has a collection of kayaks. There are a number of West Coast institutions that have kayaks, but singles. There was one at the Young. I don't know if it's there anymore. So they're populated around and of course in Alaska, a lot of the state of Alaska Museum has a collection there, and in fact a real expert in skins and kayaks and native culture. And then there are a lot of kayaks that have been returned to native populations that are maybe not close to an urban center, but they're returning some of the technology back to people, and then regenerating an interest in building them from reconstructing them from observing them.
Wow. Oh, so like they take it apart to put it back together.
I think so. I mean, I don't know if they would take it apart, but from drawings and documents of how they're made, and I'm sure there are still people who remember some aspects of that as well.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. While we're talking about the construction of these kayaks, Savannah Boyano, hi Savannah, asks, can you talk about the teeth/chewing part of creating the skeleton of the kayak again?
Maybe
I mean, how do you want me to? I'm not sure what can be. So I'll just sort of repeat. So in order to get to fine tune the curvature of those ribs, often people use their teeth, and that would sort of soften the fibers in the wood and allow that wood to bend. I don't think there was a lot of like steam bending technology in these places. I have read about like bull kelp bowls and heating up water to soften wood, but that's quite complicated. And I think the easier way to do it is to use your teeth and just sort of mechanically change that wood so that it doesn't break, but it slowly bends, and you can perfect that angle that you need.
Wow. It's amazing to think that they got them all so uniform too. I mean, it's one thing to do one, but to be able to get all of them like that.
That's the art of it.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I mean, that the whole thing is just this beautiful organic shape. It's fluid dynamic. It is strong, and it is agile, and it's quiet.
It perseveres. It's lasted over 100 years.
It's just an incredible vessel.
Great. We have another question. Do you have other Alaskan objects apart from the Balclutha, of course?
Yes, although I consider the Balclutha, it's a Scottish, Hawaiian, American. Yes, it's everybody. Yes, we do actually. We have in our archives, in our library, we have some great photos. We have great photo collections of sailors who were in Alaska, and then some from the canneries. We also have logbooks from vessels that went up there. In terms of Alaskan artifacts, though, I guess we have scrimshaw would probably be the most that we have.
We don't have a lot of important ethnographic objects.
We have more, dare I say, white people going to Alaska and getting souvenirs and bringing them back, that kind of material. But I do have to say our photo collection is just astounding, and we've got some beautiful shots.
Yeah, they're so interesting.
And if anybody from Alaska is listening to this, please get in touch with me, because I would love to share collections. And that's one of the reasons why Eloise and I were excited to do this, is because we know that this is going out to a lot of people, and the more people who know about it, that's the more people that could help us.
We are thirsty for connection, especially after a year of COVID. And I think we've done a pretty interesting job of reaching out to people in other parts of the country and learning more about these little stories in our
we learned so much about our collections from people on the outside who either have a personal connection or they study it. So nothing bad comes of talking about these collections, because it's always such a great learning experience for us. So
Awesome. We've got one more question for you here. They said, you mentioned the Russians in Alaska on the West Coast. Do you think that the Russians might have brought Alaska natives down with this sort of kayak to Fort Ross to hunt sea otters?
Oh, boy.
Sounds like you know. a little bit more. I think that, I mean,
I
I
don't know.
don't know.
I'll give you my reference response is that I don't know, but I do know where I could look to find that information. So if you need an answer to that, get my email address, go to the parks website, get my email address and contact me and I will find the answer.
I feel like I read in a book I read about Native Alaskans in the California, what would be the California area, but I could have also had a dream about it. I don't remember. But I mean, it could have possible.
Great. Are there any other questions from the audience? If anybody wants to raise their hand and speak a question or type one last one into the chat, now's your moment to do so.
Come on, you're just getting warmed up. We love to talk about our collection. Eloise and I could literally be here for hours talking about it.
Okay, well, I think that wraps up our Q&A. I'll pass it back to Kevin here. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
Well, the park staff is great about looking up some information. So I encourage any of you out there to take them up on their offer, to take Eloise and Gina up on their offer to look up some fact or some figure or some information for you. They have some amazing information at their fingertips there. Again, Dave, Gina, Darlene, Eloise, Taylor, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Katie, if you can pull up our sheet with the webpage. Most all of our attendees today, I think, know about us and what we do. But if you don't, or if you'd like to learn a little bit more, or maybe see what the latest is with the Fund for People in Parks, I encourage you to go to our website and take a look. If you would like to make a donation to us, you can do so through our website today or anytime. So please take a look at our website. And thank you all so much for joining us today. I had a good time. I hope you all had a good time. And hopefully someday we can do an in-person visit to San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park. I think it's a wrap. Thank you all very much.